All right, more on our top story. Now, this might be shocking to hear, but when it comes to Joe Biden and the federal government, honesty is not always their first priority. Last week, we all learned all about Devon Archer's close ties to the big guy. But Archer was not the only businessman with access to Pops. Another Hunter business associate, guy by the name of Eric Schwerin, visited the White House and Naval Observatory more than 30 times while Joe Biden was vice president. But Joe never discussed business with Hunter and his partners or anybody ever for that matter. Now, also tonight, new evidence of malfeasance from the FBI surrounding Joe and Hunter Biden. House Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan has now uncovered new documents showing that the FBI knew Hunter's laptop was very real, but they refused to not acknowledge the truth while working behind the scenes with big tech. We call it pre-bunking or censoring what ultimately ended up censoring the Hunter Biden laptop story. Anyway, Chairman Jim Jordan joins us now with more. Originally, we knew that Facebook directly asked the FBI that had verified the authenticity of the laptop if it was real, and they wouldn't answer. Now we know Twitter also directly asked.
Both of them asked when Twitter was early in the day. Remember, the story breaks October 14th, 2020, Sean. Early in the day, FBI meets with Twitter. Twitter asks the question, and the FBI says, yeah, the laptop's real. And then another agent quickly jumps in, a lawyer with the FBI, and says no further comment. Later in the day, they have another meeting scheduled that same day with Facebook. At that meeting, when they get asked the question, after they'd had deliberations, the FBI, they get asked the question, same question from Facebook, and they say no comment. And Elvis Chan testified in the Missouri case. He testified and said that was the only interaction he had with Facebook. But now with the internal documents we've gotten from Facebook, shows a different story. The very next day, October 15th, Mr. Chan has a conversation with the Facebook employee, an FBI agent, by the way. He has a conversation where he says, yeah, the laptop is real. Doesn't look like it's for an operation at all. But they still censor that story. And then, of course, what spills out of that is the 51 former intel officials and their letter where they say it's a Russian information op, has all the earmarks of a Russian information op. And the long and the short of it is the American people were denied access to an important story that was the true election interference, I believe, in 2020.
So the FBI lied about meeting with big tech regarding the Hunter Biden laptop story. You wrote that on Twitter or X or whatever they're calling it these days. But we also know more, don't we? Because of now Senator, then Attorney General from Missouri, Eric Schmidt, brought the case on this very issue. The head of the site integrity at Twitter at the time is a person by the name of Yoel Roth. Yoel Roth said in those meetings, the FBI was warning that big tech might be victims of a disinformation campaign that might be about Joe and Hunter Biden. But yet they knew that the laptop was real, and yet they were warning big tech that there probably would be a misinformation campaign specifically about Hunter, right?
Weekly meetings that these big tech had with the government where they say there's a hack and dump operation coming and it's going to involve Hunter Biden. Those four facts they kept putting in front of big tech. And then when it happens and you have this story break on the 14th of October 2020, just weeks before the most important election, it's all been laid out. And the FBI knows that the story's real, but they prepped them for it being false. And they allow them to believe it's false. They allow them to believe that this is some foreign information operation when they knew that it wasn't. And that, to me, again, is, I think, the biggest election interference we had in the 2020 campaign. But no one wants to talk about it except you, Sean, and folks in the conservative press.
Well, it's interesting, too, because I think one could make a pretty strong case that would be called election interference, that the FBI, again, like in 2016. All right, let me ask you the same question I was asking Kevin McCarthy. Joe didn't just lie. He lied on a spectacular level by telling us as a candidate and many times as president that he never once spoke to his son or brother or anybody, for that matter, on their foreign business dealings. OK, now we have chapter, verse and detail that he was up to his eyeballs involved in this. Then we take it a step further. The Biden brand was being sold. That's what closed those deals for millions of dollars. The brand was not the crack addict. It was not the hooker addict. It was the father. And the father's involved in these deals. Do you think that we are now looking at a president of the United States compromised by some of our most hostile enemies, and that this was a pay-to-play bribery scheme that benefited the entire Biden family?
Well, Well, we'll see, and I appreciate what the Speaker said, that we're going to continue. Yeah, right, he didn't. But we'll continue to do our work and do what the Constitution requires us to do. But you're exactly right. The president said he had no involvement. No involvement except dinners, phone calls, and 30-plus meetings with Hunter Biden's business partners. I mean, and 30-plus meetings, 20-some phone calls, dinners with the wealthiest woman in Russia, and all they talked about was the weather, we're supposed to believe. And the Democrats say this is some illusion of access. That looks like real access to me when you got 30-some times Hunter Biden's business partner is showing up at Joe Biden's house or at the White House having meetings with the vice president while he's vice president. That looks pretty much more than an illusion to me. That looks real. And then you reference this the meeting in Dubai that Kayleigh referenced, where they have a meeting and then Biden.
What did Hunter do for the money?
That's what Devon Archer testified.
And the grandchildren got paid. What did the grandchildren do to earn that money?
Yeah, what was the service they were providing? What was the product they were offering? What was the value they were adding? The answer to that question seems to be the brand, and the brand seems to be access. And now we know dinners, phone calls, and now all these 30-some plus visits that his business partners had with Vice President Biden.
And if I recall, bribery, high crimes, and misdemeanors would be impeachable offenses, correct?
That's what the Constitution says, and we're going to do our job, and we'll see where it goes.
All right. Thank you, Jim Jordan.